This is a quick story of how I cheated the system to help all my friends get A's in high school for US AP History, or AP US History, I guess. It was a really fun time back then. In 11th grade is when I took it, the class. And what the teacher offered was retakes for some of the primary tests. And what I noticed after taking the first retake was that a lot of the questions from the original test was pretty much the same. It was just like randomized order. And because he gave like retakes, it was like, okay, as long as you know the questions on the first test, you know exactly what the answers are for the retake. And then he would average it so that, the scores are, averaged out. And if you got a B, for instance, or a C, for instance, and then you got an A on the retake, then you would get a B. But what I ended up doing was actually asking a lot of friends who wanted to take retakes. Like sometimes I would get a B, sometimes I would get an A. Either way, it wasn't 100%. So I would ask a whole bunch of friends to be like, okay, do you guys want to come together and like you look at 5 questions in the test, like 1 through 5. I'll look at 6 through 10 and so on. And then there's like 50 questions and they're multiple choice. So you can also try to remember like what the choices are, but the question is the most important thing. So I had basically like 10 or so people. More people would get added on later because people would hear about it, like that I was doing this. Like I created a whole Facebook group and everything too. And I ended up actually managing to recreate like, I think 80 to 90% of the test. And then I would just give it out to everyone who helped and participated and be like, okay, here are the questions of the original test and here are the answers basically. And then whenever we did retakes, they were really easy. You would have to do it like after school and stuff. So it wasn't like during class. But I remember one of my friends was like, yeah, like when I did the retake, I finished it in like 5 minutes flat. And like I just had to wait there, otherwise it would look too suspicious. So I was like, that was so funny to me. But I basically did it every single time. And it was fun. It was fun to like get a group together and try this idea that I had of just like, this is how the system works. This is how like he's offering it. This is not actually cheating, or at least I didn't consider it cheating, because it's like one person theoretically could do this if they can memorize all 50 questions. So all I was doing was just asking a whole bunch of friends to collectively remember what the questions were. So to me, in my mind, it was cheating the system, but it wasn't actually cheating. Eventually, I actually heard some people say like, oh, they thought what I was doing was not cool. Like even one of my good friends was like, oh, it feels like unethical, immoral to do this, like it doesn't feel right. So they decided not to participate. And I was like, oh, that's fine. And I even heard that somebody was telling the teacher that I was doing that, but I never heard from him. So I'm not sure if he even heard it, but if he did, he didn't care, because I like to imagine that he was like laughing about it. Like he was just like surprised that someone would even try something like that. But that's just in my own head. I don't even know if any of that's true. But I still very much enjoyed that time period where I was doing that and helping as many people. Eventually I would get a little annoyed though, because some people were just not remembering the questions. So I ended up just mainly doing it with like 2 or 3 friends. And we would each memorize like 10 questions instead. And then the people who didn't actually help that much, I sometimes would still give the answers to, but most of the time I was reluctant to, because they didn't actually help. It was like that when those people who, in group projects, they do nothing, which is, it happens all the time, so that's unfortunate. But yeah, that was a fun time for sure. I miss high school in some ways because it was so easy to just get A's and stuff. It's test taking and stuff like that. For me personally, was a very easy process oftentimes you just oftentimes the teachers, they give study guides and they highlight what's going to be on the test and stuff like that. So it was easy for me at the very least. I find life after school to be significantly harder and more interesting at the same time. But I'm not trying to say like, I just want to make sure I don't make it seem like school was completely easy. For sure, college was difficult, but high school for me personally was fun and easy. Anyways, that was the quick story of how I cheated the system, or maybe some people might think I cheated in class for AP US history, and I also got a 5 on the AP exam, so it wasn't as if this was the only thing that allowed me to get a good grade and stuff like that. I knew what I was doing. History is kind of like just a story. You just like remember the story, and it's pretty simple. And I think the teacher was pretty cool overall. I'm pretty decent, despite me not paying attention in class. Yeah, back then I just read textbooks in high school. Could never pay attention. Okay, that's pretty much it for this story. Let me know what you guys think down below, whether or not it was me actually, whether or not it was unethical, whether or not it was actually like cheating, or was it just a cool way to cheat the system like I'm saying. Okay, catch you guys in the next one. Peace.